Sir Carl. And now, to discuss the Week 6 lesson for Pre-Calculus, was a consistent Dean's Lister and Rizal Technological University and graduated with a degree of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Mathematics. A AMTAB coach in Immaculate Conception Academy, Green Hills, with Singaporean math curriculum. She served as a manager in Mathemagis, a Singaporean Math Approach Tutorial Center, a Gawad Kalinga volunteer, and a trainer of White Team Leadership Training Team from 2013 to present. A senior high school teacher at Mandaluyong Science High School, please welcome Ms. Nadia Olios.
Okay. Good day, everyone. This is Mrs. Olios, and I will be your teacher today for Week 6 of Pre-Calculus. Our objective for today's lesson is to identify different trigonometric ratios and apply them to find other trigonometric values. Let us define first trigonometric identities. A trigonometric identity is an equation that holds true for all values of the angles involved in the expression. So let's have a short recap. Previously, we learned that for any angle theta, the trigonometric ratios of cosecant, secant, and cotangent are defined as cosecant theta or cosec theta is equal to 1 over sine theta, secant theta or sec theta is equal to 1 over cos theta, and cotangent theta or cot theta is equal to 1 over tan theta or cosine theta over sine theta. So aside from these trigonometric ratios, we have more. Okay, so we have other trigonometric values. And to help us remember these trigonometric ratios, let us take a look at this hexagon. So the 6 vertices of this hexagon are labeled as the 6 trigonometric ratios, namely sine, cosine, cotangent, cosecant, secant, and tangent. And in the middle of this hexagon is 1. So from this figure, any of the following rules may be applied to obtain the various trigonometric identities. So let us talk about rule number 1. So using this hexagon, any trigonometric ratio is equal to the product of its 2 immediate neighbors. So the 6 vertices are the trigonometric ratio. And according to rule number 1, any of this is equal to the product of its 2 immediate neighbors. So anong ibig sabihin nun? For example, si sine. Okay? So, sine is equal to the product of its 2 immediate neighbors. So, ano ba yung mga neighbors ni sine? We have cosine and tangent. So, therefore, sine theta is equal to the product of tan theta and cosine theta. Okay? Ganon din po kay cosine. So, ang mga neighbors ni cosine ay sina sine at si cotangent. So, therefore, cosine theta is equal to the product of sine theta and cotangent theta. And the list goes on until tan theta. So tan theta is equal to the product of sine theta and secant theta. So again, rule number 1, any trigonometric ratio is equal to the product of its 2 immediate neighbors. So, yung kanyang mga kapitbahay. Okay, so that's rule number 1. Let's talk about rule number 2. Okay, so again, using this hexagon, the trigonometric ratios at opposite ends, okay, of the same diagonal are reciprocals of each other. So, ano namang ibig sabihin yan? For example, ulit, si sine. So, ang opposite ni sine on the same diagonal is si cosec. So, sabi dito sa rule number 2, any trigonometric ratios at opposite ends of the same diagonal are reciprocals of each other. So, ibig sabihin si sine ay equal sa reciprocal ni cosecant. So that means sine is equal to 1 over cosec theta. Okay? Ganun din si cosine. At ang kanyang opposite naman ay si secant theta. So, ibig sabihin, cosine theta is equal to 1 over secant theta. Okay? And lastly, si tan theta ay equal sa opposite niya, sa reciprocal rather, ng kanyang opposite, which is cotangent theta. So, that is tan theta is equal to 1 over cot theta. Okay? Ganun din po itong tatlong to. Okay, so you can just list them down, and that's your rule number 2. Again, rule number 2, the trigonometric ratios at opposite ends of the same diagonal are reciprocals of each other. Next, rule number 3. So this time, okay, nag-iba na yung ating hexagon, may shaded part na. Okay, that's for rule number 3. So consider the 3 shaded parts. Ito po yun. This one, this triangle here, it's the first shaded part, and this one, another triangle here, it's the second shaded part, and this one. Okay, so we're talking about these triangles. Ito yung shaded part na tinutukoy natin. Okay, so in each shaded part, the sum of the squares of values at the 2 adjacent vertices is equal to the square of the trigonometric value at the third vertex. So, for example, ano bang ibig sabihin niya, no? Focus tayo dito sa shaded part na to. Okay? So, we have the 3 vertices, sine, cosine, and 1. So, ang sabi ni rule number 3, the sum of the squares of values at the 2 adjacent vertices. So, sine, cosine, yung magkatabing yan, yung sum daw ng square nilang dalawa ay equal sa square ng pangatlong vertex. Okay? So, ulitin ko yung sum ng squares nitong dalawang magkatabing vertex na ito ay equal sa square ng ikatlong vertex. So, ibig sabihin, si sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta ay equal sa 1 squared or 1. So, sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. Okay? So, yung sum ng squares nitong dalawang magkatabing vertex na to ay equal sa square ng pangatlong vertex. Okay? So, ito naman, yung sumunod na shaded part na ito. Okay? So, ang adjacent vertex natin ay si tan at si 1. So, ibig sabihin, yung square ni tan at yung square ni 1 ay equal sa square ni secant. Okay, the sum of the squares of the 2 adjacent vertices is equal to the square of the third vertex. So tan squared theta plus 1 squared or 1 is equal to secant squared theta. And then lastly, ito naman, okay, so ang adjacent vertices natin dito is 1 and cotangent theta. So 1 squared plus cotangent squared theta is equal to cosec squared theta. Okay, again, 1 squared or 1 plus cot squared theta is equal to cosec squared theta. So rule number 3, the sum of the squares of values at the 2 adjacent vertices is equal to the square of the trigonometric value at the third vertex for these shaded parts. Okay, so I hope this hexagon will help us solve other trigonometric values. Okay, so let's start with proving identities. Okay, so we have here some strategies that hopefully will help us in solving other trigonometric values. So strategy number 1, think of what identities you can use. Sa dami ng identities na napag-usapan natin, no, it is sometimes getting confusing, okay? So we really have to think of the best identity that will fit the situation. Okay, so ako ang technique ko din, if I'm not yet very familiar with this, with the given identities, I will just have to have them, okay, on the side of my solution, okay, until I get to be familiar with them. So, yung hexagon na ginamit natin kanina, I will just place it on the side para nakikita nyo siya lagi, and then you get to be familiar with that. Okay? So, sometimes it is useful to express every expression in terms of sine x and cosine x. This is very true. Okay? So, minsan mas useful pag naka-sine x siya at saka naka-cosine x. So, if we can express the trigonometric values with sine x and cosine x, well and good. Okay? So, for example, no, tan x, cosec x, sec x, and cot x can all be expressed as sine x over cosine x, 1 over sine x, 1 over cosine x, and cosine x over sine x, respectively. Look out for expressions such as sine squared x plus cos squared x, or sec squared x minus tan squared x, and cosec squared x plus cot squared x, because they are all equal to 1. So, mapapadali ang ating pagsosolve pag mayroon tayo nitong mga values na to dahil lahat sila equal to 1. Okay? So, let's try. Ayan. So, I will just put it here, the hexagon that we talked about a while ago here, okay, para maalala natin yung mga rules at para din magamit natin siya in solving this identity, in proving, okay, the given identity. So, let's prove the identity given here, okay? So, we are going to try to prove the left side of our equation, which has to be equal to cosec A. Okay? So, kailangan maipakita natin na itong side na to equal to cosecant A. Okay? So, ang mamanipulate natin dito sa given natin is yung left side lang. Okay? So, hindi na natin to gagalawin. Okay? So, nakasimplify na yan. Okay? So, tip number 1, strategy number 1, if we can express the given into sine and cosine, might as well try it first. Okay? So, since hindi rin naman natin alam, no, kung ano ba talaga yung best technique, okay? So, pwede nating subukan muna na i-express yung given natin into sine and cosine. Okay? So, let's try it. So, let us express cot A and tan A as cosine A over sine A for cot A, and then sine A over cos A for tan A, multiplied by cosine A. So after that, remember, we need to manipulate or to simplify first our parentheses, the expression in our parentheses. Okay, bago natin pakialaman si cosine A. So, dyan muna siya. Simplify muna natin to hanggang sa makakuha tayo ng 1 or yung tatlong, yung rules na natutunan natin kanina. So far, wala pa tayong nakukuhang rule na natutunan natin kanina. So, simplify muna natin to. Okay? So, from this given, let's simplify it into one fraction. So, we will have our LCD is now sine A, cosine A. Then simplify your numerator, you will get cosine squared A plus sine squared A. Ayan, familiar na to, di ba? Okay. So, alam natin na this is rule number 3. Rule number 3 says that the square of the sum of the squares of the two adjacent vertices, the sum of the squares, so sine squared plus cosine squared, is equal to the square of the third vertex. So, alam natin na itong given na to ay equal kay 1. Ayan. So, pwede natin yang isimplify. So, we can have here 1 over sine A cosine A multiplied by cosine A. Okay, so ano pa yung napapansin natin? Yung ating denominator is, if we are to simplify this one, we will have here cosine A, okay, cosine A over sine A cos A. Okay, so pwede natin i-simplify this one. This will become 1 over 1. Okay, therefore we will have 1 over sine A. 1 over sine A. That's equal to cosec A. Remember, the rule number 2 says it talks about the reciprocal, right? So cosecant A, cosec is equal to the reciprocal of its opposite vertex. So sine yon. So opposite vertex niya is sine. So cosec is equal to the reciprocal of sine, which is 1 over sine A. Therefore, we can say that cosec A is equal to 1 over sine A. So that's how we prove the given identity. Okay, let's have another example. Okay, tip number 2. Start from the more complicated expression. Okay, so since gusto nga nating masimplify yan, ang goal natin is to start with the more complex expression or given. Okay, so it's usually easier to simplify a more complicated expression than to try to make a simple expression more complicated. So, simple na siya, wag na natin siyang gawing complicated. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, so prove the identity. I still have the hexagon here para lagi natin siya nakikita. Okay, so prove the identity. 2 tan x equals this one. So very complex siya. Okay, yan yung given natin. So obviously, yung left side natin, simple naman siyang tingnan. Okay, hindi yan yung ating i-manipulate. We are going to manipulate the right-hand side, okay, and make it more simple. Okay? So, since we have here fractions already, if we're to express this one into sine or cosine, medyo magiging mas complex siya. Okay? And goal nga natin, yung complicated expression, gagawin nating simple. So, converting this or expressing this to sine or cosine will not make it simple. Okay? So, mas magiging complicated siya tingnan. So, let's not do that. Let's think of another way. Okay? So, since gagawin natin siyang simple, maybe we can make it as one fraction muna. Okay? Pagsasamahin muna natin siya. So, we are going to identify the LCD of this given. Okay? So, ang LCD natin dyan would be cosec. Okay? So, our LCD here is cosec x minus 1 times cosec x plus 1. Okay, that's your entire LCD. Okay, so if that's your LCD, for numerator, we will have cosecant x, cos x rather, times cosec x plus 1 plus cos x times cosec x minus 1. So, keep on simplifying muna. Okay, so keep on simplifying, expand the numerator. Okay, so kahit may nakikita na kayo dyan sa denominator, mamaya nyo na yan isipin. Complex muna tayo. Yung complex part muna tayo. So that's the numerator. Keep on expanding. Okay, so magkakaroon tayo ng cosine x, cosec x, plus cosine x, plus cos x, cosec x, minus cosine x. So mapapasin nyo, okay, sa numerator, yan yung value natin. And then for the denominator, okay, so if you notice, this is An example of, again, an identity. Okay, so this is a perfect square. Sum and difference, rather. Sum and difference. Okay, so kaya naging cosecant squared x minus 1 ang ating denominator. So again, if you will simplify this one, you will have cosecant squared minus 1. Okay, then for the numerator, look closely. Sa numerator mo, you have 0 pairs. So si cosine x and si negative cosine x ay 0 pair. So 0 na yan. Okay. And then cos x and cosecant x plus cosecant x are like terms. So you can simplify that as 2 cosine x cosec x all over cotangent squared x. So this one is cotangent squared x. Okay, from rule number 3. Okay, so ano pa kaya yung pwede nating i-simplify dito? Okay, so ngayon, we can rewrite this one. We can express cosec x and cotangent x as sine and cosine. Okay, so if we do that, we will have 2 cosine x, and then cosec x can be expressed as 1 over sine x all over cotangent can be expressed as cosine over sine squared x. So we will have here 2 cosine of x over sine x. And then this one, get the reciprocal and then proceed to multiplication. So you will have sine squared x over cos squared x. Okay, so you can simplify this one. Okay, you can simplify this. This is 1. Okay, this is cos x. Okay, this is, sorry, sine x, and then this is 1. So, ang matitira na lang ay 2 sine x all over cosine x. So, kung mapapansin mo, sine x over cosine x is equal to tangent x. So, therefore, we can write it as 2 tan x, which is the value of the left side of your equation. Yan. So, we have proven already our answer. So, therefore, 2 tan x is equal to 2 sine x over cos x. Yan. Okay. Now, let's have another example. Okay. So, what if they both look complicated? So, hindi mo ma-identify kasi mukha sila parehas na complicated. Yung left side mukhang complicated. Yung right side mukha rin complicated. So, if they both look complicated, what are you going to do? So, ngayon, nasa sa inyo na yan. You can manipulate either. Okay, so, method 1, we are going to manipulate, we're going to prove that the left side is equal to the right side. Okay, so hindi rin porket maikli yung expression mo. For example, ito, no? So, nakikita nyo, ano lang siya, single expression lang siya. Okay, so mukha siyang madali. Okay, ito naman tatlo. Tapos, mukha siyang complicated. So, minsan, looks can be deceiving. Okay? So, yan, minsan akala mo madali siya, pero yung pala, hindi rin naman. Okay? Mas mahaba pala yung proseso. So, that means, dapat flexible din tayo. Okay? Kaya nating i-simplify parehas na side. Okay? In cases like this, na hindi natin ma-identify kung alin yung mas madali or mas mahirap, or mas complicated na expression, dapat flexible tayo at kaya nating i-simplify parehas. Okay, so try natin yung dalawa. So we will have two methods here. Okay, so let's have the left side. We're going to prove that the left side is equal to the right side. Okay, so paano natin yan gagawin? Since naka-express na siya as cosine and sine x, therefore, hindi natin na kailangan siyang i-express into sine and cosine. So ano kaya yung gagawin natin dito? Okay, so sabi nga, di ba, minsan kailangan natin siyang gawing complex din. Okay, so try natin i-write we're going to try to express this term or this expression, okay, as separate fractions. So paghiwalayin muna natin sila. Okay, so we will have 1 over sine x cos x, that's your denominator, okay, plus cos x over sine x cos x. So wala tayo pong binago, wala tayong in-express into another. We just separated the two terms here. Okay? So 1 and then cos x. Both sine x over sine x cos x. Okay. So, ano pa kaya yung pwede natin gawin dito? Keep in mind that your goal is to produce tan x, cotangent x, and cosecant x. Okay, that's your goal. Keep in mind that you have to produce tan x, cot x, and cosecant x out of this given that you have here. Okay? So, ano yung napapansin natin? Can we simplify either of them? Okay? So, yes, we can simplify the second fraction here. The second expression. So, we can simplify it as, okay, so this is 1 over 1. We can simplify it as, sorry, mamaya na. This becomes 1 over sine x. Okay, so 1 over sine x. Ano nga ba yung 1 over sine x? Okay, that's the reciprocal of sine function. Okay, so the opposite which has an opposite of cosec. So, ibig sabihin, 1 over sine x is already equal to cosecant x. Okay, so nakuha na natin yun. Si cosecant x. Okay, ano pa yung pwede natin gawin? Okay, we can rewrite 1 or we can express 1 as sine and cosine. Okay, kasi ang denominator niya is sine x and cos x. So, dapat related din siya doon. Okay, so, if we're going to express the numerator here, if we're going to express 1 here as sine and cosine, we will have sine squared x plus cos squared x all over sine x, cos x. So, walang nangyayari sa ating denominator. And then, 1 over sine x is already cosecant x. Okay, so ano naman yung pwede natin gawin dito? Try nating paghiwalayin ulit. Okay? Like what we did a while ago, paghiwalayin ulit natin sila at pwede tayong makasimplify ulit. Okay? Kasi may nakikita tayo ditong sine squared over sine, baka meron tayong pwedeng ma-simplify dyan. So pag pinaghiwalayin natin yan, we will have sine squared x over sine x cosine x. Okay, so nakikita nyo na, pwede kayong mag-simplify dyan. And then here, cos squared x over sine x cos x. So again, may simplify tayo dyan. Tapos ito, hindi na natin gagalawin kasi yan na po yung hinahanap natin, si cosecant x. So if we're to simplify this one, we will have here sine x over 1. Okay, so 1 na yan. And then dito naman, pwede natin i-simplify si cosine. So cos, ang matitira dito, cos over 1. So magkakaroon tayo ng sine x over cosine x plus cosine x over sine x plus cosecant x. Eh, ano ba si sine x over cosine x? Diba that's equal to tangent? Okay, this is equal to tangent. So, tan x. Cosine x and sine x over sine x is cotangent. So, na-prove na ba natin? Yes. Therefore, sine x over cosine x plus cosine x over sine x plus cosecant x is equal to tan x plus cot x plus cosec x. Yan. So, proven na tayo. Okay. So, let's try naman yung right side. So, si right side naman, ipoprove natin na equal siya kay left side. So, kung kanina medyo marami tayong pinagdaanan, okay, dahil hindi naman natin sure kung alin dyan yung mas madali, ito-try din natin si right side. So, ang goal naman natin, maipalabas na si right side equal kay left side. So, kung napapansin nyo, si left side, cosine x and sine x ang kaniyang mga variables. So, ibig sabihin, we are going to express the right side into sine and cosine. Excuse me. So, let's try it. So, let's try to express tan x as sine and cosine. So, sine x over cosine x. Cotangent x, okay? Cotangent x as cos x over sine x. And then cosec x as 1 over sine x. So, from here, let us continue simplifying since we cannot cancel out anything here. We can just simplify it into one fraction. So, our LCD here, okay, for this expression is cosine x sine x. Okay, so yan po ang magiging LCD natin, or sine x over cosine x. So, your numerator now will be sine squared x plus cosine squared x plus cos x. Okay, ano bang napapansin ninyo? Mukhang malapit na tayo sa katotohanan, no? Okay, so sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. So, yan. So, sine squared x plus cosine squared x can be written as 1 plus cos x all over sine x cosine x, which is already the left side of your identity. So, proven na siya agad. Okay? So, minsan talaga, mas madali i-express yung given into sine and cosine. So, one step lang tayo. Two steps problem lang. Okay? So, now let us talk about addition formulae, another identity. So, in general, addition formulae are sine times a plus b is equal to sine a cos b plus cos a sine b. Then sine times a minus b is equal to sine a cos b minus cos a sine b. Then for cosine naman, cos a plus b is equal to cosine a cos b minus sine a sine b. Then for cos a, cos times a minus b is equal to cos a cos b plus sine a sine b. And for tangent a plus b, we have tan a plus tan b all over 1 minus tan a tan b. And tan a minus b is equal to tan a minus tan b all over 1 plus tan a tan b. So these formulas are, of course, at one glance, no, medyo mahirap siyang i-memorize. So what I personally do, lalo na kung first time ko lang siyang ma-encounter, I always have this sa solution ko. I will just have it on the left side or right side, basta sa gilid, para lang lagi ko siya nakikita at napafamiliar ako sa kanya. Okay, so let's try muna one problem. So without using a calculator, okay, find the value of each of the following. Give your answers in surd form. Okay, so our goal here is to evaluate without using a calculator. So let's try. Okay, so let us evaluate cosine 75 degrees. Okay, so what's the value of cosine 75 degrees without using calculator? So cosine ang pinag-uusapan natin among the addition formulae that I showed you a while ago, dalawa doon related sa cosine. Okay, so ayan. Yan yung mga given na hahanapin natin. Okay, so isa-isayin natin. Cosine 75 degrees. So, dalawa dyan, related, dalawa dun sa mga pinakita ko kanina, ay cosine. So, ngayon, ang gagawin natin, i-identify natin kung alin yung mas okay dyan. So, actually, pwede naman natin yan gamitin parehas. Kaya lang, ang goal nga natin ay hindi gumamit ng calculator. So, ano kaya yung value na pwede natin gamitin para hindi tayo gumamit ng calculator? So, from 75 degrees, para makuha natin yung form na ito, it's either a plus b or a minus b. Para magamit natin yan, we need to express 75 degrees as a plus b or a minus b. So, if we're going to express it, think of a value na hindi mo na kailangang gumamit ng calculator. So, ano kaya yung value na pwede natin gamitin? Okay, so for cosine 75 degrees, I can write 75 degrees into other values na hindi gagamit ng calculator. So, ano kaya yung value na yon? Pwedeng 60 degrees plus 15. Kaso, kaya ko bang kunin yung value ng Kasi, di ba, pag in-express ko siya as ganyan, cosine 60 degrees plus 15 degrees, ito yung gagamitin ko. So, kaya ko bang kunin yung value ng cosine 60? Yes. Kaya ko bang kunin yung value ng cosine 15 degrees? Medyo mahirap without calculator, right? So, ibig sabihin, medyo mahirap tong value na napili ko. Hindi ko siya pwedeng gamitin. Mahihirapan ako. Okay, so not 60 and 15. Ano pa kaya? So, let's try 50. Okay, cosine 50 plus 25. Okay, 50 degrees yung A, 25 degrees yung B. Naku, lalong mahirap. Hindi ko kayang kunin yung cosine 50 degrees nang walang calculator. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ko gagamitin si 50 and 25. So, ano kayang value yung magagamit ko, okay, for, ano kayang value yung pwede kong i-replace kay 75, kung saan makukuha ko yung cosine A, cosine B, at sine A, sine B, or the other one. Pwede rin namang subtraction, si A minus B. So, isip ulit ako ng number, i-express si 75 degrees. Okay, so pwedeng 100 cosine 100 degrees minus 25 para makuha ko si 75. Okay, kaso, kaya ko bang kunin yung 100 degrees na hindi gumagamit ng calculator? Hindi rin. So, hindi ko siya gagamitin. Okay, so ganun siya. You think of a number that you can use to express the given so that you can get its cosine and sine without using a calculator. So I will express cosine 75 degrees as cosine 45 degrees plus 30 degrees. Since I know how to get cosine or I know the value of cosine 45 degrees and or sine 45 degrees or cosine 30 degrees and sine 30 degrees, I will express 75 degrees as 45 degrees and 30 degrees. So, samang ginamit ko, ito ang gagamitin kong format. Okay? Pwede, as I have said, pwede rin pong subtraction, pero you need to think of a number na kaya nyong kunin yung cosine and sine without using a calculator. Okay po? So, cosine 45 degrees plus 30 degrees is equal to, just follow the format, plug in nyo lang po si A and si B. Okay, so cosine 45 degrees and cosine 30 degrees minus sine minus sine 45 degrees, sine 30 degrees. Sorry, nakalimutan po. Okay. So from here, I can simplify cosine 45 degrees, cosine 30 degrees, minus sine 45 degrees, and sine 30 degrees. So cosine 45 degrees is equal to 1 over square root of 2. Cosine 30 degrees is equal to square root of 3 over 2. Sine 45 degrees is 1 over square root of 2. And sine 30 degrees is equal to 1/2. Okay? So, just plug in the values. Ayun, wala tayong ginagamit na calculator dito. Okay, we just simplify. So, from here, keep on simplifying. We will have here square root of 3. Okay, so same denominator tayo. 2 square root of 2 over 2 square root of 2 minus 1. Okay, so rationalize natin yung denominator. We will have square root of 6 minus square root of 2 all over 4. And that's already our final answer. Okay, let's have another example. Okay, so ito naman, sine 37 degrees, cosine 23 degrees plus cosine 37 degrees, sine 23 degrees. So among the 6 formulae, we have these two. Okay, so alin kaya dyan yung pwede nating magamit para sa given? So pansinin ninyo, ang A natin is 37, ang B natin ay 23. So using this formats, alin kaya dyan yung swak? Okay, yung una. So, sin A, yung format niya, nakaayon kay sin A cos B plus cosine A sin B. Okay, so addition ang ating operation here. So, we're going to use the first formula. Okay, so therefore, we can express that as sine 37 degrees plus 20 degrees, which is equal to sine 60 degrees. And we know that sine 60 degrees is equal to the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, last one. 1 equals tan 15 degrees all over 1 minus tan 15 degrees. Okay. So, meron tayong dalawang option for tangent. We have A plus B and A minus B. So, based from the given, it looks like the first one. Yung nasa taas, ito. Okay. Kaso, hindi siya naka-tan A and tan B. But we know that we can rewrite 1 or express 1 as tan 45 degrees. Okay. So, we can express 1 as tan 45 degrees and then plus tan 15 degrees all over 1. Okay. Minus, for tan 15 degrees, we can now express it as tan A, tan B. So, tan 45 degrees, tan 15 degrees. Which is equal to tan 45 degrees plus 15 degrees. So, if we already express it as this side, we can conclude that it's tan A plus B. So, tan A plus B. So, tan 45 plus 15 is tan 60 degrees, which is equal to square root of 3. Okay? Lastly, double angle formulae. So, in general, we have this formulae for double angle. Okay, so as you go along, you get to be familiar with them. Just make sure na lagi siyang nandyan, visible, nakikita niyo siya. Tapos, eventually, maiisip niyo din kung alin yung best for the given. Okay? So, sometimes you need to try all of it, okay? Para makita niyo kung saan kayo patungo. So, let's have an example. If cos theta is equal to P, where theta is an acute angle express given in terms of P. So we have here a condition where theta is an acute angle. Okay, so let's have sine 1/2 theta. Okay, so from sine 1/2 theta, we are going to express it in terms of P. So ano ba yung meron tayo kanina? So ang nakita ko na pwede natin gamitin is yung cos 2a equals 1 minus 2 sine squared a. Bakit? Balikan natin. Okay? So, sine 1/2 theta ang given natin. At kailangan nating i-express ito in terms of P. So, since kailangan nating mapalabas na cosine, di ba ang given natin may cosine theta value, which is P. So, kailangan nating magamit si cosine dyan, si cosine theta, kasi ang value niya ay P. So, from sine 1/2 theta, we're going to express that in terms of P, kung saan gagamitin natin si cosine theta. At ang mga option natin dito ay napakadami. Of course, tangent is not included already kasi sine ang pinag-usapan natin dito. Sine theta and sine 1/2 theta and cosine theta. So, among this, alin dyan yung merong sine and cosine. Ganun siya. So, ganun kayo mamimili. Okay? So, for cosine 2a equals 2 cosine squared a minus 1, hindi siya magagamit kasi wala namang present si sine theta. So, kailangan merong sine at merong cosine kang makikita in the format. So, ano-ano yon? Ito yon. Yung una, yung pangalawa, at yung pangatlo. So, among the three, alin kaya dyan? Okay? So, since ang goal natin is hindi maging super complicated ang ating given, we're going to eliminate the complicated ones. Okay? So, eto, sobrang daming nangyayari. You have sine 2a, 2 sine a. Medyo mahaba yan. Okay, so eliminated na yan. Okay, this one naman, may squared pa. So, hindi mo na rin yan option. The best option here is just this one. 1 minus 2 sine squared a. Okay, so siya yung pinaka-simple sa tatlong yan. Okay, that's why we're going to use that one to solve or to express this given. As I have said, you can use the other formulae, but medyo depende na yun sa solution mo. May mahabang solution, tapos yung iba kasi nalilito na along the way. Okay, so hindi mo na yun gagamitin. Okay, so from those formulae, we're going to use this one. Cosine 2a equals 1 minus 2 sine squared a. Okay, so where a is equal to 1/2 theta. So, let us solve for this one. Okay, so cosine 2, plug in the value of a, which is 1/2 theta. Cosine 2, 1/2 theta equals 1 minus 2 sine squared 1/2 theta. So, ang goal natin may palabas na si sine 1/2 theta ay ang goal natin ay ma-express si sine 1/2 theta in terms of P. Okay, so what's the value of sine 1/2 theta in terms of P? Yun po yung goal natin. Okay, so simplify lang natin yung given. So we can cancel out 2 here. If we're going to simplify this one, this is 1 over 1 na po. Okay, so this one also. Okay, and then we will have P. Okay, this one is cos theta. Bakit naging P yun? Cos theta, and we know that cos theta is equal to P. So we can write it as P. Okay, equals 1 minus 2 sine squared 1/2 theta. Okay, so wag niyo po muna i-simplify yan kasi ang goal mo nga mapalabas na si sine 1/2 theta ay in terms of P. So, since ang hinahanap natin is si sine 1/2 theta, ito po yung part na yon. Kung nasaan si sine 1/2 theta, dyan natin siya nakikita, i-isolate muna natin siya. So, pag in-isolate natin siya, we will have 2 sine squared 1/2 theta equals 1 minus p. So, keep on isolating sine 1/2 theta. So, divide both sides by 2. We will have here sine squared 1/2 theta equals 1 minus p all over 2. So, para mapalabas natin si sine 1/2 theta from sine squared 1/2 theta, we can get the square root. Okay. So, remember, theta is an acute angle. So, meaning to say, theta should be a positive value. So, pag kinuha natin yung square root nito, ang kukunin lang natin ay yung value ay yung positive value. So, ano yung final answer natin for this one? Okay, ano ang ating final answer? Okay, so sine 1/2 theta is equal to the square root of 1 minus p all over 2. Yan po ang ating final answer. So, positive value lang po yan. Positive. Okay. Positive value lamang po ang kukunin natin for the square root of 1 minus p all over 2 since theta is an acute angle. Okay, so let's have another example. Given that cosine 4x is equal to 7 over 18 and that 270 degrees, 4x is greater than or equal to 270 degrees but less than or equal to 360 degrees, find without using calculator the value of cosine 2x. Okay, so ang hinahanap natin naman ngayon yung value ng cosine 2x. So since 4x is greater than or equal to 270 degrees but less than or equal to 360 degrees, we can divide it by 2. So we will have 2x is greater than or equal to 135 degrees but less than or equal to 180 degrees. So meaning to say, 2x lies on the second quadrant, okay, where x is a negative value. So pag nasa second quadrant siya, ang value ng x natin, negative. So hinahanap natin yung value ng cosine 2x. So we can use here from the double angle formulae, we can use cosine 2a equals to 2 cosine squared a minus 1. Okay, kasi siya yung pinaka-simple at ang hinahanap natin is all about cosine lang naman. So we don't need to use the other, pakita ko ulit. Okay, pakita ko lang po ulit yung mga double angle formulae natin. Okay, so ito po yung formulae natin. Yan. So, ang titingnan lang natin dito ay yung mga cosine related. Okay, so cosine 2a, we have 3 choices. Since cosine lang naman yung pinag-uusapan natin, no need for sine, therefore, hindi natin to gagamitin. Hindi rin natin to gagamitin. Ito ang gagamitin natin. Kasi cosine lang naman yung involved sa ating problem. Okay. So, cosine 2x is equal to, okay, we are going to use cosine 2a equals 2 cosine squared a minus 1. So, a is 2x. Okay, ang value po ng a natin is 2x. So, plug it in. Cosine 4x equals 2 cosine squared 2x. So, 2x natin is, ang a natin is 2x minus 1. So, kailangan natin mapalabas si cosine 2x lang. Okay, so keep on simplifying. We will have cosine 4x, according to the given, it's 7 over 18, equals to 2 cosine squared 2x minus 1. So, keep on isolating cosine 2x. Yung goal natin is ma-isolate si cosine 2x. So, keep on simplifying. We will have 25 minus 18. So, nawala na po si constant 1. Okay? So, we added it to 7 over 18. Okay? So, plus 1 or plus 18 over 18. So, that's 25 over 18 equals 2 cosine squared 2x. Okay, so malapit na. Keep on isolating. Divide both sides by 2 naman po tayo. So, divide both sides by 2. Okay, you will have 25 over 36 equals cosine squared 2x. Ayan. Okay, so now we can isolate cosine 2x fully by getting the square root of both sides. Okay. So, we will have here cosine 2x na lang. Okay. And then here, since we're looking for the value of cosine 2x and the value of 2x is on the second quadrant, that means it's a negative value. So, ang kukunin lang natin dito, if we get the square root of 25 over 36, we will just get the negative value, which is negative 5 over 6. Okay, so kasi makukuha natin dyan, positive negative 25 over 36. But since ang pinag-uusapan lang natin is 2x, which lies on the second quadrant, then the value of cosine 2x is negative. So our final answer is cosine 2x is equal to negative 5 over 6. Okay. So that's our final answer. Okay, so I hope you learned a lot from today's discussion. Okay, no worries, you will further discuss this lesson and have more exercises. So that will be all for today. Goodbye and thank you, everyone.